Good morning, all you backyard politics fans. I'm Nikki. There's been an update and new details to the whole Epstein saga, so I wanted to get into that with all of you. An order was upheld that all other co-conspirators are immune to future charges, meaning Ghislaine Maxwell and everybody else that's tied to this Epstein shit is immune to any further charges. It's ridiculous. So I've taken a couple, pretty much this last week, I've been trying to put everything in order for this episode, and it is really hard to do, so bear with me. In 2008, Acosta gave Epstein the sweetheart deal, the famous sweetheart deal in Florida. Maria Farmer was the first victim to go to the FBI. So, Maria Farmer, got in contact with Whitney Webb, whom I've talked about. She was on the Political Vigilante quite a few times, talking about this Epstein case specifically. And if you want a lot more details to the Epstein case, go to the Political Vigilante. He has an entire section dedicated to Epstein and everything that is going on there. So this is Whitney Webb. She's a reporter, and she received a phone call from Maria Farmer. So I wanted to play you a couple of clips from that. Let me make sure the volume's okay. Let's see where we're at with that. My kids are sleeping right now, so I don't want to blast everybody out of the house. All right.
The first clip here that is a clip from the call with you and Maria Farmer, Epstein victim.
Whitney, I've got to tell you something. This is why I've been dying to tell you. There are only 30 women that have come forward. 30. Whitney, I saw I'm not kidding, I'm very disturbed by this part. I saw at least 5 girls come in that house a day. I mean, on a really slow day, there would be 3 little girls. I know
it was really high, the actual amount.
No, Whitney, it's in the thousands. Where are they? Are they dead? I mean, these children have to be dead because here's the thing, like Brad was like, well, what if they a drug addict? What?
You think some of them were killed?
I think that they had to be, because here's the thing, Whitney. Brad said he knows of 500 just in Florida. Like, we can't find them. Where are they? And the thing is, like, oh, this kid's making a loud machine out there. Come inside for a second, please. Anyway, all I was going to say is that these children were between, thousands. I was there a year and I saw thousands of little girls, it was so exhausting with me. They were in his office. There were just constantly little girls there, constantly. And I remember one of the reasons I quit, I said, I am tired of dealing with the number of people coming and going. I'm just tired of it, and that sounds horrible now, but I didn't understand what was happening entirely. I just knew it was weird. And I certainly didn't know it was pedophilia. I mean, and the other thing is, Ghislaine had said one day in Florida, when I was in Florida, she said, we have to go on a jog for a while. And I said, why? And she said, well, Jeffrey needs 3 massages. So while I was in Florida, there were 3 little girls being assaulted. And now I look back on that, I'm so creeped out. I didn't know. But I knew that they abused their maids from the Philippines. That was another reason I quit. Because one day I went to take a nap upstairs in the 66, or in the mansion on 71st. And, I worked the door, like signing people in, and there was no one coming in that day. And so I went and took a nap. And they were the sweetest ladies from the Philippines ever. And they came in and they were kind of tucking me in. And one of them whispered, I said, how long have you worked here? And she said, we were stolen. I'm like, what does that mean? We were stolen. They were trafficked. And they had women from the Philippines in Florida and in New York and in the house on and the ranch. And no one ever cares. Like, I mentioned this, and everybody goes, yeah, well. They traffic people out of Philippines and Thailand. It's perfect.
So there's a couple other clips I would like to play for you guys. Sorry. Yeah, just take a listen, and then after this, I will tie it all together.
Clip for this one.
Yeah.
She said the FBI was just as abusive to her as Epstein and Maxwell,
Right.
which is just insane, since that's supposed to be the institution that protects people like this.
Yeah, nobody listening to this show believes that, I'll tell you that much. I'm sure there are people out there that believe that. Nobody listening to this show. Okay, let's play that clip, because that's an interesting clip to get into. Did they, after she left, was that the end of contact she had with them after the assault and they finally let her out? Did she have any further contact with them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She said that when she went back to New York after that whole incident in Ohio, that Epstein stalked her and followed her around.
Very creepy. All right, we're going to play the clip now. Here's the FBI clip.
I mean, I can't even explain to you how abusive the effing FBI is. It's unbelievable to me. I mean, they, first of all, never offered me witness protection. And when I first called them, they knew I was telling. Believe me, they knew they knew everything I was telling them. They already knew, because they're in on it. And it was so weird, his reaction when I was talking to him. I called and I got some answer guy, and then he passes me to some guy who's like, when I start talking about Wexner, and I asked the guy, this is all over the phone in 1996. I said, do you have a file on Les Wexner? And he said, why? And I said, he's the head of the snake in America. And I don't even know I was intuiting this. And also, I think it's common sense when you see all this stuff going on. And anyway, when I said that to him, he said, yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe we do. And I said, well, these people are using child pornography, and they've stolen photographs of my sisters. That right there would have been life in prison for Jeffrey and Ghislaine. I still have the envelopes with their touch DNA and fingerprints on them, and the FBI will not take them from me. They never would. They would never take the envelopes that they stole. I mean, they photographed out of these envelopes, and I have proof. I still have the envelopes with me. And the FBI was like, yeah, no, we don't need that. They also knew in 1996 that I'd been trafficked and Annie had been trafficked, and that would have been enough to put them away. But they never cared. They didn't care. And the worst part was, I named everybody. I named Donald Trump. I named everyone who I thought was a co-conspirator at the time. So I named Alan Dershowitz, Donald Trump, absolutely the Clintons. These are people that I saw coming and going, that I knew were part of it. And I made it really clear that this is a very scary thing for children, and that I see between 5 and 10 girls a day going upstairs. And now that I know what's happening to them, I want it stopped. And
that's where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
So there's 2 more clips, but if you noticed, Trump, Wexner, the Clintons. Let's see here.
I think a lot of these elites aren't loyal to the nations they live in. They're loyal to their ruling class. Like, this is a supranational, swamp, basically. You know how people in the U.S. are calling, the deep state, the swamp. I mean, I feel like, there's a lot of billionaires that have this sort of supranational structure, and they're just, in it to do this sick stuff. Because Leslie Wexner is not the only billionaire that's into this.
Right.
I can say that for a fact.
When we hear people talk about the occult, and that a lot of these people are just into strange, weird, ancient religions and weird types of ceremonies and things like that, how much does that figure into some of the things that you've looked at, whether it's Marina Abramovich or what? Because I dismiss a lot of that stuff because I say it's bad enough if they're pedophiles. I don't really care if they're satanic or Mormon. It doesn't really matter that much to me. But
Right.
how much credence do you put in this stuff where you do see a lot of occult imagery and a lot of occult types of ceremonies in these, whether it's secret societies or fraternity? I mean, what amount of weight do you give that stuff?
Well, I think throughout the time, like several decades, have there been a lot of people looking at this stuff. I think intelligence agencies have had people out there to do what they call muddy the waters, try and discredit legitimate research into these type of crimes by putting out stuff that's just like, nuts. But in terms of like the Satanist stuff and all of that, actually, I didn't take any clips out from this, but Maria did say that she saw weird symbols at like Epstein's places and Ghislaine's apartment and stuff that she saw somewhere else laterward, and someone told her that like that was Baphomet, like a Satanist thing. Like she said she saw that, but wasn't like overly familiar with that type of stuff.
It was tasteful. It wasn't overdone. The Baphomet. The satanic statues were too tasteful. It wasn't overdone. It was a little Baphomet there, a little What when people talk about the Clintons and Trump, we're talking about the most powerful people. But see, they're not the most powerful people in the world, but they're certainly they occupy some of those powerful positions in the world. What is your opinion of the role that either one of those men had in this after looking at a lot of the information that you've looked at?
Well, honestly, I think since the days of John F. Kennedy, the president doesn't really have as much power as we'd like to think he does.
Right.
I think part of the reason for that is to make people think that elections like actually make a difference, at least presidential elections. And that and have people, sort of develop this political savior complex. As long as we have the right guy in the White House, then as long as, we can fix things if we get this one guy in this one office. And I think since the days of JFK, that type of stuff is not really reasonable anymore, because what we're dealing with is, these intelligence agencies that do these things, like, support Epstein in that type of activity, for example, but they're also involved in drug running. They're also involved in gun running. I mean, they're essentially organized crime syndicates.
So,
and like I said earlier, they got in bed, the CIA, right, as soon as it was formed, basically got in bed with the mob. And they're in bed with the mob in a bunch of other countries. They work closely with other intelligence agencies like Mossad and MI5 in the UK that do the same thing. So, I mean, that's basically who rules the world, but they answer to people too, right? And that's actually, there's this one clip that I have to conclude, I guess, that where Ghislaine's talking about that a little bit, because she says that even though Ghislaine and Wexner were working for Israel, right? So she said Wexner was the head of the stake in America, but there's another family that she thinks is like the head of the snake,
okay.
Right?
And where does she think Ghislaine Maxwell is currently?
That's we'll get into that. So let's play the clip.
All right, let's play the clip.
Unpack from there.
Let's play the clip. All right, here, Maria Farmer, Epstein victim, is talking about Ghislaine Maxwell.
So then she says to me, my dad was a very powerful man, and, he was very important. She said, Maria, you don't understand. And then she's showing me, like, who she grew up with and how powerful he was and how much money they had. And then she goes on to tell me, she said, Maria, and this is true, she said, and she showed me, she had passports. Get this, I don't know how this is legal. She had a passport, a French passport, an English passport, an Israeli passport, an American passport, and there was one other. I'm trying to think of what the other one was. And I was like, I thought you were only allowed to be a citizen like of 2 countries or something. I didn't know. And she's like, oh, no, because of my dad. I'm a citizen of all these nations. And I'm like, what? So then later, when she was talking to me about something one day, she said that the Rothschilds were the greatest protectors of her family. And she wasn't talking about Lynn Forrester, by the way.
She was talking about the other ones.
The people that are in her.
Okay, so the Rothschilds, who are the Rothschilds? Because that's like, they're the centerpiece of every conspiracy since the beginning of time, pretty much. Who are they? I mean, I kind of, as soon as I hear the Rothschilds, I usually roll my eyes and go, oh boy, here we go. Then people are going to start talking about numerology soon. And, like they're going to get into like, so who are the Rothschilds? I mean, who are the Rothschilds? Other than a very,
They're a multi-generational banking family. I mean, I don't want to like talk about all the different things people have said about them over the years, but there are some obvious facts people can point to. A multi-generational banking family in several countries in Europe. A lot of very influential people that later go into positions of major political power. Sometimes they're Rothschild bankers. Like Macron of France used to work for a Rothschild bank. Commerce Secretary of the United States, Wilbur Ross, also used to work for them, right? But it's also worth pointing out, since it's pretty much documented now that these guys were working with Israeli intelligence, that the influence of the Rothschilds in the creation of Israel, I mean, this is historical fact, the Balfour Declaration that really paved the way for the creation of Israel as a political state, was addressed to the Rothschild family. I mean, they were the people that really pushed, funded and nurtured the Zionist movement in its early days in the 19th century. And I mean, you can see that reflected in Israel today. One of the biggest roads in Tel Aviv is named after a Rothschild. The Knesset building, which is like Israel's Congress, I mean, that was financed by the Rothschild family. They have a definite influence there, I would argue. And I think a lot of other people, I mean, it's hard to see that type of money floating around and patronage to a certain nation state and assume they don't have influence there.
And
right.
And Ghislaine's father was an Israeli intelligence asset, and a media mogul, right? He published papers
in the UK.
In the UK,
yeah.
right? Right. Okay. So he was, probably the propaganda arm of.
Well, he worked for several different intelligence agencies.
Okay.
Robert Maxwell did. Like, he had a relationship with Russian intelligence as well. But he apparently, British intelligence thought about recruiting him at some point, and they said no because he's only loyal to Israel. So he was considered to be like, an Israeli super spy, basically. But he had like a lot of connections to different intelligence agencies in the world. But apparently he had been given money to build his media empire by Mossad financiers or financiers, and had basically been, put in this position to manage this money, and he didn't, wasn't able to pay Mossad back at some point, and started making threats, and he got pushed off a boat.
When Epstein gets caught the second time, is this just a major glitch in the matrix? Did nobody see this coming? How does, he's got all these powerful friends. He gets away with it the first time. What is the second time then? How do we understand that? Is it that just, you had an aggressive district attorney in New York, or how exactly, or an aggressive U.S. attorney? How exactly does he get brought in the second time?
So Maria said that it had to do with some very tenacious NYPD detectives that were very adamant about getting this guy charged again. She said the Berman guy, Jeffrey Berman, the district attorney, is not a good guy. That's what she said. But she said that he basically had to act because these guys at NYPD were like really persistent, and that she knew that he was going to be arrested like 2 weeks before because they had come to interview her and like solidify up the case and all this stuff.
And these NYPD guys, how does the case even fall into their lap?
I don't know the details of that, to be honest. Personally, before I talked to her, I thought this had to do with Deutsche Bank, because just 2 weeks before he was arrested, Deutsche Bank, which was the only bank that would still really do business publicly anyway with Epstein, closed their accounts.
Do you think there's anything true about the idea that Anthony Weiner's laptop had information on it? Is this something that you've heard this idea? Have you not?
But
I'm asking you.
Any evidence for that?
Deutsche Bank also has ties to the Trumps. There is one last clip, and then I will get to the rest of this episode.
But Maria Farmer says that she is not hiding in Israel, that she's living in the Rothschild mansion.
Where's that? Where's the Rothschild mansion?
In the UK. Apparently they have several. But that she's with the UK Rothschilds. The head of that family, by the way, Lord Jacob Rothschild, since we mentioned her earlier, Marina Abramovich, they have recently this picture of them together and behind this painting that's called like Satan Summons His Legions. They're like posing in this together, right? I mean, it's weird.
Something's
I don't
weird.
know.
Something's up. Why? I was looking, and again, I was always a skeptic of Pizzagate only because there were no victims, right? You know, Franklin, victims. Kinkora, victims come forward. North Fox Island, victims come forward. Jeffrey Epstein, victims come forward. In anything without victims where we're just looking at art or we're just looking, but if you look at some of the art that Tony Podesta had and some of the artists that he would frequently purchase art from, it's fucking weird. There's kids in cages. They're doing sacrifices. It's very odd. I don't know, man. I've never seen it. I've been to some wealthy people's homes. I've really never seen art like that.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people like Wexner and like Epstein, before this started to come out, I mean, their public persona, I mean, Bill Clinton in the early 2000s called Epstein a philanthropist, right? I mean, they had like these rosy reputations, like look at how much Wexner's given to Ohio State University and the medical school is named after him, and he gave all this money to a hospital, look at him giving all his money away. And people say the same stuff about people like Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, after the Epstein arrest, kept hanging out with Epstein. He knew Epstein apparently in the 90s. They did business together. I don't know what that business was, but Gates flew on his plane like 3 times. He went to the island. Now, he did all this stuff. That's apparently fine.
Epstein had all these different scientists around him. He said his interest was eugenics. Yep. What in what form, what are they trying to do? If you had to wrap your head around why he's having these salons with all these scientists and he's having these, meetings with all these important people in the field of science. What is the goal? What do you think the end goal, if you had to speculate, and I know you don't love doing that because you're a great reporter, but if you had to speculate, what do you think he wants? Does he want to influence health policy so that it kind of promotes some of these more nefarious ideas that he has? And does he want to wrap eugenics up in like a nice bow and say, here, it's not eugenics, it's whatever you would call it. It's better life. We call it better life,
Right.
Less
so
life.
I don't know exactly what Bill Gates wants, but I do know what Jeffrey Epstein was interested in terms of his eugenics interest. And this has been reported in mainstream media, but if that's the case with like what they did to Maria Farmer and they only reported 5%, I mean, honestly, who knows? But what they did say is that he was basically interested in essentially making like a master race, and that they were looking for girls that were intelligent. Yep. And they were asking about grades. They only wanted smart kids, creative kids, talented kids. And actually, Maria Farmer's younger sister was one of these girls that was being groomed to have Epstein's children. And then after the assault, she got, Ghislaine called her and said, you ruined everything. Like your sister was going to have Epstein's baby. She was so lucky and all this stuff. Like they really think their genetics are superior. As far as what Bill Gates might be up to, I don't want to speculate because I don't know what he says in private, so I can't assume, but I would really urge people to look at the history of eugenics in the United States, because in the 1920s, the eugenics movement was so powerful that the Supreme Court ruled that a mother and her young daughter had to be sterilized because they were too stupid. Really? And they were from like a poor, And this is not isolated. There were states that had passed eugenic laws before this. I mean, they're the billionaires of the Gilded Age were really into this. And they were like, and the lady that they said to sterilize in that Supreme Court ruling was a poor white person. They were just like, oh, you're too stupid because you're from, the Appalachian Mountains, but they've been like that with other, it's not just white people,
Of course, no, of course not.
Obviously.
Of course not, yeah.
But that type of mentality actually ended up inspiring Hitler. Yep. But obviously, with World War II, that type of mentality went out of style. And there's a lot of people who make the convincing argument that those people that were eugenicists in the United States during that period of time maintained their views, but found a way to sort of let it slide under the public, right?
Right.
And
what about a
I
lot
don't
of
want to
people?
get
Yeah,
too controversial, but
get
Margaret
it.
Sanger.
Go there.
Okay, well, Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of like Planned Parenthood
Right.
a long time ago, she wrote very disturbing things about African Americans.
Right.
And
Right.
intentionally wanted to put Planned Parenthood centers there where there was the highest concentration of African Americans.
Yeah,
okay?
I mean, it's a
And
very,
that's
it's
not a
a, yeah.
conspiracy. You can read her letters.
No,
It's
yeah.
odd. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to get into the whole like issue because it's like such a left and right divide, and I really try and do everything I can to like transcend the left right divide because there's so much more important stuff to
And you
deal
mean the
with
issue
than, like,
meaning abortion.
bickering. Right. But I
Right.
mean, if this lady was saying this stuff and saying, I want to put the center here because I don't want this particular race to, like, I don't want their, I don't want them to have a lot of kids.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's messed up. And Bill Gates' father was associated with that organization. Apparently, he had ties with the Rockefellers, and the Rockefeller family were from the time of the first billionaire, J.D. Rockefeller, in the Gilded Age, where they were passing all these laws. He was into that stuff, and his sons were into that stuff. Right. So I would say to people that want to sort of look at this, look at the history, because we know what those people were saying and what they were doing, because they were open about it then.
Right.
Right.
And now they've
and ask yourself,
yeah.
If this continue? They were never held accountable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very possible. And if you look at stuff Bill Gates has said, like, a couple of years ago, too many Africans.
Right. So now those views have maybe gone underground, but they're still very much, held by people. And what do you think it is? You study these people, you've written about them. Is it power? Is it control? Do they want to just control the entire world? What's the goal here? What's the end game? Is to just have a slave race of people that will do the jobs, and then have this, kind of perfected race of people that gets to enjoy the benefits of. I mean, what do you think the picture looks like?
Well, really quick, I want to go back to my last point really quick, because like you saying this had gone like underground. I really believe that, because something that Maria told me is that she heard Ghislaine and all of these people she was around say the most racist things. And I mentioned earlier that they were very supremacist, but they would not go to cities where they thought there were too many African Americans. They said the most racist
first
things
of all, I want
about these people.
Yeah, I want my human traffickers to be woke and politically correct. I do. I don't sleep at night if my human traffickers.
Okay. Bill Gates, the guy who wants to vaccinate us for COVID, huh? So, Bill Gates knew Epstein since well before 95. And I will put a link to Whitney Webb's Twitter account, because yesterday she just released the entire phone call between her and Maria Farmer. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'll link to it in the description box below this episode. And before I forget, please hit the like button, share this episode, and subscribe to my channel so more people see this stuff, more people are informed, and spread the news, guys. So let me see here. I'm going to close this for a second. So, according to Business Insider, U.S. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin listed as a contact for Epstein's friend's firm, which is Jean-Luc Brunel. He is in charge of MC2 models, or MC squared models. So, hold on one second. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. This is William Barr's father and Jeffrey Epstein. If you remember from previous episodes, William Barr's dad got Epstein his first big gig, I guess, if you will. Okay, so let's see here. Trying to get all of these in order, and it's really hard to do so. Okay. So here is a picture of Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. All right. There's Epstein and Trump. We already know they have ties. So here we go. Secretary Mnuchin was listed as a contact for Epstein's friend's firm, Jean-Luc Brunel. Mnuchin donated to Kamala Harris's Senate campaign. And because Kamala didn't prosecute his bank during the financial crisis. So we've got Republicans working with Democrats, but against the people. Oh, Ghislaine Maxwell was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. You know there had to be like so much security there too, so it's not like, oops, she just accidentally happened to be there. No, there's more pictures of her with them. So here we have Ghislaine Maxwell, Bill Clinton. There is Kevin Spacey at one of the events. He was on the flights. Bill Clinton with one of the victims. Kevin Spacey with Ghislaine Maxwell. Bill Clinton. I can't tell who that is in this photo. And then Bill Clinton again. And I believe he's on the island in that picture. Look, they're all friends. It's one big party. Okay, guys? It's not two different parties because there's no party that represents the working people. It is one giant class, and that's it. The ruling elite. It's a big old club, and you ain't in it. So, here is Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Harvey Weinstein. Right? Perverts stick together. So, Weinstein was a huge donor to Chris Christie and to the DNC. Oh, I'm sorry. Kushner's dad, Charlie, was a big donor to the DNC and donated to Chris Christie, obviously, to gain control in New Jersey. There's also Kushner with Weinstein and what's her face? Ivanka. Here is Weinstein with all the DNC candidates and wife. So here is a breakdown. Weinstein has donated to all of these people: Obama, Schumer, the DNC, it says on here in different places. John Kerry, Cory Booker, Hillary Clinton. See how this works? They are all tied together. There is Weinstein hanging out with Kevin Spacey. There is no left or right. There is the one ruling class. I cannot say that enough. Kevin Spacey and Ghislaine Maxwell. Kevin Spacey and Bill Clinton. There's also Kevin Spacey and Bill Clinton. Oh, what do you know? Bloomberg and Spacey. I already showed that photo. So here's Kushner's dad, Charlie. Charlie was actually, as I mentioned, a big donor to the DNC and donated to Chris Christie. But also, he went to prison because he set up his brother-in-law with prostitutes, sent I'm trying to figure out how this is worded. I made notes of it while I was watching TV. So he got set up with prostitutes because he wanted to blackmail his sister into helping Chris Christie out with some charges. But he was released, Charlie was released early because of a 12-step program that he completed. So he did basically no time. This is why Kushner claims to be for prison reform, is because of his dad. It's not because he has a little empathy at all. So there is Chris Christie and Charlie Kushner, Chris Christie, Trump, and Jared Kushner. Also, when Kushner was a kid, Netanyahu used to stay at his house. So this is how this works, guys. This is Leslie Wexner and his wife Abigail. Okay. Wexner, if you remember, is the head of the snake in America, as Maria Farmer puts it. It's a worldwide child trafficking ring. Wexner has ties to Mossad. All of the U.S. ring travels through Ohio, is what Maria Farmer says in that interview, or phone call, I guess. He's the same guy, mind you, that owns Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie and Fitch, and Bath and Body Works. So the people that traffic for him, like Ghislaine, Ivana Trump, Ivanka's mom, and Epstein, and people like that, they all promise these really smart, creative kids that they're going to be models. That's how they get them in here. Oh, you're going to be a model. You're beautiful. You're intelligent. And that's how they get them into this shit. Okay? Remember, these are children. Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked with Ivana, like I just said. That is also, Maria Farmer stated that in the phone call as well. Here is Ghislaine with her father, Robert Maxwell. He was Mossad. And if we could recap, Ghislaine said that she, Wexner, and Epstein were loyal to Israel. So does all of this make sense? They're all tied together. There's Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and Robert Maxwell and Trump. There is Ghislaine Maxwell, Naomi Campbell, who is also involved in all of this disgusting shit, and Trump and his wife. Let me see here. So in January 2001, this is also stated in that previous clip, I guess, that I showed you guys, but I didn't include this. It says in January 2001, an article saying Epstein had ties to the CIA and Mossad, and then made his money from Wexner, Trump, and Bill Gates. So that's where Epstein's money comes from. It comes from the CIA, Mossad. Oh, I'm sorry. From Wexner, Trump, and Bill Gates. Okay? Wexner, Trump, and Bill Gates funded his ass, and he had ties to the CIA and Mossad. How do we trust anybody at the national level? This is fucking disgusting. There's Bill Gates. Here's Bill Gates' name on the flight logs. Stephen Hawking also was at the island, pedophile island, as all of the locals knew it as. These are other physicists. Which brings me to this article that I found yesterday from Business Insider. All the tech moguls who have been linked to Jeffrey Epstein after he became a convicted sex offender. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Leslie Wexner, Prince Andrew. They're not techs, but okay. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Scott Borgerson, Marvin Minsky, MIT, Joy Ito, MIT, Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn. So that is one article from Business Insider if you guys are interested in looking it up. They were into some very sick, disturbing shit. So here, before we get to this one, let's go back to Bill Gates. So he said he wanted to bring down the world's population with vaccines. And now this guy wants to vaccinate all of us and then track us also through our phones and shit? I don't think so. Haha, no way. He's concerned that the global population is too large, especially in Africa. His kid's pediatrician admitted he doesn't even vaccinate his own kids. Why are we trusting this guy who has nothing to do with the health industry at all, as far as like knowing what to do, and who obviously has ties to the world's most corrupt people? Why are we trusting him to make a vaccine for us? Let's get real, people. Epstein was into eugenics and worked with Gates, MIT scientist Stephen Hawking. We already talked about that. Specifically recruited smart, creative kids, told them it was a modeling career. The royals are involved, obviously. We've heard a lot about Prince Andrew, and if you saw his BS interview on one of those stupid nightly shows, he said something about how he can't sweat because his sweat glands were ruined in the war or something. It was fucking ridiculous. Maria Farmer contacted all of the mainstream. There's another picture of Prince Andrew with Ghislaine. Maria Farmer contacted all the mainstream media outlets. No one wanted to cover her story. Specifically, they said they did not want to cover Wexner. I got this from watching The Political Vigilante. It's called The Propaganda Multiplier, and this is how it works. The White House, the CIA, and the Pentagon all send their news or information down to AP, AFP, and Reuters. Okay, those are the global news agencies. Then from there, it gets siphoned off into these major news channels. Then they put it down to the people. So we know the White House is corrupt. We know the Pentagon's corrupt. And we know the CIA is corrupt. So what do they send on? Why wouldn't they want to tell us about Maria Farmer, all of Epstein's other people that he sexually abused and trafficked? Why are they not asking where Ghislaine Maxwell is? It's because it's all run by state propaganda bullshit TV. Okay? Let's see here. So the head, I don't even know where it's at. Oh, CBS. The head of CBS, Leslie Moonves, resigned because of sexual abuse allegations, right? Remember that? Top NBC exec Stephen Burke knew about Matt Lauer's abuse and did nothing. Jared Kushner used to own the New York Observer. You see how we're getting our mainstream talking points here? Okay, on to the Rothschild family. You know who is a person that is born from who is a Rothschild descendant? Anderson Cooper, another one of our mainstream media talking heads. His mother is a Rothschild. That's him when he was little. My opinion, he looks a little bit like Jonathan Taylor Thomas, but that's just my opinion. And as far as I know, JTT has nothing to do with this, just on a side note. But Anderson Cooper, Rothschild family. Anderson Cooper works at CNN. See how this works? It's fucking disgusting. There's Ghislaine Maxwell with more Rothschild family members. Nikki Hilton married a Rothschild family member. They're all the elite ruling class. There's no Democrats, there's no Republicans. It's one fucking club and we're not in it. Okay? The ruling class is 1%. The rest of us is the 99%. We need to take the fuck over and get this shit out of here. Will Smith's bodyguard named Randy Bowie threatened to sue, I believe this was Maria Farmer, if she ever outed him. Yeah, it was Maria Farmer. Randy held me against my own will at the Wexner estate. So, here's a picture of him. Will Smith's bodyguard. Do you see how this works? Look at this. Look at all these people. Oh, they're the cover of your magazines, and oh, we love them because they're rich and famous and powerful and cool. We've seen them on these TV shows. They're all the fucking same. So there's Alan Dershowitz with Epstein. Breaking. It's been learned that Jeffrey Epstein's alleged fixer, Ghislaine Maxwell, attended Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos' exclusive book retreat campfire last year. So, Jeff Bezos is also tied to the sex ring as well. So is Elon Musk. There's Ghislaine with Charles Koch, one of the Koch brothers. Pierce Brosnan, I believe his name is. No. I was getting him mixed up with Pierce Morgan. This is Pierce Morgan. I'm sorry, guys. Pierce Morgan and Ghislaine Maxwell. Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. Tipper Gore, who was on Jeffrey Epstein's flight. Tom Hanks. Yep, Tom Hanks. It's in the flight records. Doesn't matter if you love him from Castaway to Toy Story 4. He is the same as the rest of them. Nobody's talking about it because he probably has a good agent and people swept it under the rug. You can't find any photos of him with anybody, but yes, the beloved Tom Hanks is also a piece of shit, disgusting pervert. Look, all these people that are, ooh, look, we're gonna have all these awesome, beautiful, wonderful, shiny things. Look at all these awesome Hollywood stars. Oh my God. Really? Anybody still want to be famous after this? I fucking don't. Chris Tucker, also involved, was on the Lolita Express quite a few times, and I believe the island as well. So, Larry Summers has a policy record of ruin and a personal record of hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. The Biden campaign talking him to is as flagrant a flag it can fly to signal it doesn't care what progressives think. So this is Larry Summers. He is also involved in this whole Jeffrey Epstein disgusting pit of evil. And Biden just appointed him as economic advisor. So Biden just appointed him as economic advisor. That makes fucking sense, doesn't it? Considering that's who Biden is. And this is Chris Coons. He's a representative. He's a Democrat representative. Totally letting this shit happen. This poor girl, that's his daughter. This poor girl has gone viral for this exact thing. She just, every time, it's filthy. Democrat, Democrat. Okay, maybe it's a little awkward to call it out. I don't care. No excuses. That's your fucking kids. Stand up and have a pair. Here is Biden also sniffing a child's hair, which happens to be Mitch McConnell's kid. And they're fine with it. Left, right, they're all the fucking same. They are all the fucking same. I don't know what else to tell you. I've tried not to do an Epstein episode. I've done like one or two other ones, but it's just so intertwined. It's disturbing. It never ends. Like you just go down all these different rabbit holes. But this was really important to shed light on because of the update where none of them can be prosecuted. So I would highly, highly recommend um, going over to the Political Vigilante and watching all of his Epstein stuff. Go to Whitney Webb's Twitter and listen to the full interview. You can also go to that YouTube channel that we were just on, the Tim Dillon Show, to watch the full episode that I was taking segments from. Yeah, I don't really know where to leave off on this one. So we just got to keep asking questions like, you know, what really happened. We got to keep digging. We got to keep talking to each other, and got to keep asking what the fuck happened, because if we don't, this case dies and all those victims remain victims, and there will be, it doesn't end with his death. Okay, you don't think that she's still trafficking kids, or that fucking Leslie Wexner is not still trafficking kids, or that people aren't still cutting deals. This is how this shit works, guys. Like this video, hit the share button, please hit the subscribe button, and then the little bell notification so you know when the next video drops. And till next time, stay healthy and Medicare be with you.